Hello, and welcome to Afternoon Tea with Karen and climate anxiety and how to fix it a bit. I'm Gen X and grew up in front of screens. I went to government school and drank the Kool-Aid. Then I saw a TED talk on why it's good to give kids climate anxiety and thought, crap, I am a brick in Pink Floyd's wall. Luckily, I woke up before I turned out like this.
Let's bring in political reporter Matthew Castunian. Good afternoon, Matt. You were at this event this morning. What happened?
Good afternoon, Ange. Well, the PM was in Ashfield in Sydney's inner west this morning, making a major health announcement. The media conference was close to finish when all of a sudden, from behind, we heard this yelling. It happened all very fast. This young woman definitely got the attention of the PM and the travelling press pack. It turns out 21-year-old Alexa Stewart is from climate activist group Rising Tide. Security was very swift to get her out of the room before the Prime Minister finished his press conference. We spoke to her a little bit later after that. How did she manage to slip in undetected? She says she walked in from the street. This isn't the first protest we've seen on the campaign. Likely won't be the last. Here's how that played out this morning.
Condemning young people like me to a lifetime of climate disasters. Of course, we have poor mental health issues.
Do you have any regrets doing what you did?
I think if the government really cared about young people, then they would stop approving new coal and gas projects, and it's that simple.
Joining me now is leading child psychologist and adjunct fellow at the Institute of Public Affairs, Claire Rowe. Claire, you're behind a landmark research paper for the Institute of Public Affairs called Climate Change Anxiety in Pre-Adolescent Children, a neuroscientific and psychological perspective. And you've revealed here an alarming increase in climate anxiety among Australian children, which you found is linked to the way that climate change education is currently delivered in the national curriculum. Tell me why the current approach is harmful.
Yeah, thanks, Rita. It is a landmark study in that sense because any research up to date has looked or assumed that the rise in climate anxiety with children is because children are exposed to the direct effects of climate change, so rising sea levels and bushfires, etc. But that's not the case of what I'm seeing in my clinic, right? I've got 9 and 10-year-olds in tears. They're in the middle of Sydney. They're not directly exposed to rising sea levels. And so this research went into the national curriculum for primary school age students that really pushes this idea of sustainability as a priority across all subject areas. And I think that parents don't even know that this stuff is kind of being taught. From 5 years old, Rita, kids have to learn about ways that they can personally contribute to almost this idea of saving the planet. And of course, for a 5, 6, 7-year-old, that's extremely overwhelming. And as a developmental expert with children, I can say they just do not have the cognitive capacity to deal with concepts that are future focused like that, probabilistic. They're very concrete thinkers at that stage. And so for me, this has been happening now for quite a while, and I've been seeing the direct effects of it with my patients, of kids absolutely paralysed with anxiety. And more than that, have this kind of sense of earnest on them or guilt that they need to do something to solve the problem.
Jen McManus is for the Minister for Environment, and the action I seek is urgent and ongoing funding for Mange Management's Wombat treatment program that does so much in my electorate as well as across Victoria. Right now, as I speak, wombats in Warrandyte are being eaten alive by sarcoptic mange, an invasive disease introduced by early settlers. It is a slow, preventable cruelty. The mites burrow under the skin, the hide thickens and cracks into painful, infected lesions, and wombats scratch until they bleed. Their fur falls out, their hearing and sight fade, they grow weak, stop eating, and within about 3 months, most die. In some areas, infection reaches 90%, and we are seeing the same pattern here. This disease does not stop at the burrow. It can spread to other wildlife, to pets and to livestock. Wombats matter. Their digging turns soil. Their burrows become life-saving shelter for other species, especially after fire. When a wombat disappears, the whole bush feels it. But there is a cure. We can save these wombats, and they are being saved by Mange Management, a remarkable grassroots organisation that punches well above its weight. Powered almost entirely by volunteers, they are the only dedicated wombat mange treatment group in Victoria. They have treated thousands of wombats, trained Parks Victoria Rangers, and built a statewide response network handling more than 1,600 cases every single year. In 2020, the government backed this work with $100,000 a year for 4 years. However, that funding ended in May. Without it, volunteers will face huge personal costs, response times will slow, and hundreds of wombats will die unnecessarily. I acknowledge that the government has committed to undertake a population count of Victorians' wombats. However, further funding is required to actually help to save Victoria's precious wombats. I know my community cares deeply about wildlife and the people who step up to protect it. And if I can also thank Mange Management Victoria, the volunteers there do wonderful work and they go out of their way to protect these precious wombats. This is a small targeted investment with a large impact on animal welfare and ecosystem health, and I trust that the government will step up and keep funding this amazing group that does so much for our local ecosystem and for our state. Thank you.
Now, because she's in New South Wales.
Tonight, the Sydney man making a difference one wombat at a time.
My name is Toby, but most people know me as the Wombat Guy. I save wombats from mange. Without human intervention, it is 100% fatal for wombats. That's where I come in.
He's a wombat warrior with a big heart.
We're in your natural habitat. Tell me about why it is you do what you do.
Well, I save wombats from mange because I'm really passionate about saving the environment, and Australia has one of the worst mammal extinction rates in the entire world. I can't stop forests from being cut down, I can't stop bushfires and climate change, but I can run really fast, and I know how to catch a wombat, and I know how to save it from mange.
Armed with his big red net and a whole lot of patience, Toby tracks down the sick wombats, builds trust, and gives them a second chance.
That's everything to me. You know, seeing something that essentially has no fur left, can't see or hear, and then a few weeks later, it looks and feels like a normal wombat again, that is why I wake up in the morning.
Who wouldn't want to save a face like that?
So, Alexis, I've got an assignment for you. In 25 words or less, which is more important? Saving the wombats or being a protester? Anyway, I'll give her a few days to think about it. That'll do. See you later. Bye.